Okay, here's a wild thought. What if you could train your own brain to heal itself? Today, we're going to explore a really remarkable technique that does just that, offering a whole new kind of hope by literally rewiring the brain from the inside out. Welcome to MediByte. Our whole goal here is to take these big, complicated health ideas and just make them simple. And for today's explainer on neurofeedback, our main guide is the incredible work of Dr. Bessel van der Kolk and his landmark book, The Body Keeps the Score. So let's just jump right in with that big question. What if you could actually rewire your brain to heal from something like trauma? I know, it sounds like something out of a movie, right? But believe it or not, this is real science, and we're going to break it all down. Okay, so how on earth is that even possible? Well, before we can get to the solution, we have to really understand the problem. So let's take a look at what trauma is actually doing to the brain's wiring. You see, trauma isn't just a bad memory or a story you remember. It's a physical thing. It leaves an actual imprint, and it literally changes how your brain and body work in the here and now. Think of it like it hijacks your body's alarm system and just leaves it permanently switched on. Yeah, it's kind of like your brain's smoke detector gets stuck in the on position. So even when there's absolutely no fire, that alarm is just blaring 24/7. Your body is constantly defending against a threat that isn't even there anymore. And you can imagine, right? It becomes almost impossible to feel safe, to learn new things, or even connect with people. You're just trapped in this state of constant, exhausting watchfulness. And this really gets to the heart of the issue. Dr. van der Kolk puts it perfectly. You can't just reason with a fire alarm. It doesn't work. When that danger signal is coming from a really deep primal part of the brain, your logical, rational mind just can't shut it off. And that is exactly why traditional talk therapy, well, sometimes it just isn't enough to heal these kinds of wounds. So if talking isn't always the answer, then what is? Well, the search for that answer led to a really surprising breakthrough. And it didn't start in some fancy, high-tech lab. Nope. It all started with a simple child's drawing. So this is where our story takes a turn. Dr. van der Kolk comes across this therapist, Sabern Fisher, and she is working with these kids who are really, really struggling. Kids who just weren't getting better with any other kind of treatment. And she was trying something pretty unconventional. It was called neurofeedback. Okay, just look at this. The drawing on the left, that was done by a 10-year-old boy, but you can see it looks like something a toddler would draw. It's chaotic. Now look at the drawing on the right. This is after only 40 sessions of neurofeedback. I mean, wow, the difference is just staggering. It shows this huge leap in how he organizes his thoughts, in the level of detail. And this wasn't about him becoming a better artist, not at all. This was proof, real visual proof, that his brain was fundamentally healing, that it was developing. For Dr. van der Kolk, this was a total game changer. I mean, a result like that just makes you ask, right? How is that even possible? So let's dive into our next section and find out how this technology actually works. The key idea? It's like giving the brain a mirror. So neurofeedback, at its core, it's actually a pretty simple idea. It's all about giving the brain a mirror. It shows the brain its own electrical activity, its own brainwaves in real time. And with that direct feedback, the brain can learn to regulate itself. It can learn to calm down the parts that are overactive and fire up the parts that are underactive. It's basically like guided personal training, but for your brain. Let me put it this way. Your brain is always humming with these little electrical rhythms. We call them brainwaves, and different frequencies or different speeds match up with different states of mind. So you've got these really slow, rolling delta waves when you're in a deep sleep, and then you have these super fast, buzzy beta waves when you're, laser focused on a project. Everything in between, that's a whole spectrum of how you're feeling and thinking. Now, a healthy brain is really good at shifting between all these different states, right? It's flexible. But trauma just throws that whole system completely out of whack. So maybe you end up with way too much of that slow wave activity during the day, and that just feels like constant brain fog. Or you get way too much of that fast wave activity, and that's where that feeling of constant anxiety and agitation comes from. So what neurofeedback does is it helps the brain find its way back to that healthy balance. So what does a session actually look like? Well, first, some small sensors are placed on your scalp. Don't worry, it's totally not invasive. They just read the brain waves from the outside. Then that brain activity controls something on a screen. It's often set up like a simple video game. So here's the cool part. When your brain happens to produce a more stable, calm, or focused brainwave pattern, you get a reward. Maybe the spaceship in the game moves forward, or you hear a pleasant little sound. And your brain, which loves rewards, basically goes, oh, I like that. And it starts to produce more and more of those healthier patterns. And over time, that just becomes the new default, the new normal. Okay, so the theory is pretty fascinating, right? But what does this actually mean for people's lives? Let's move on from the science and look at some real stories of what this rewiring process can do. This is a quote from a patient named Lisa, and it's powerful. Before neurofeedback, she said her trauma made her feel completely fragmented. She was always hearing this hum of low-level conversations inside her head. But afterwards, she talks about this incredible sense of integration, like everything just came together. She wasn't a hostage to her emotions anymore. She wasn't living in that constant fight or flight state. Just wow. And listen, it's not just individual stories like Lisa's, as powerful as they are. There was a really crucial study done with Vietnam veterans. We're talking about veterans with severe chronic PTSD who hadn't gotten better with any other kind of treatment. So they split them into two groups. One group got the standard care they'd been getting. The other group got neurofeedback. And the results, which they tracked for 30 months, they were absolutely staggering. The neurofeedback group, their symptoms improved dramatically. Almost none of them had to go back to the hospital. But the standard care group, look at this. Every single one of them actually got worse and needed more hospitalization. I mean, the data couldn't be clearer. One of these paths led towards healing, and the other one just didn't. When you see results like that, it really points to a massive shift in how we need to think about treatment. So let's talk about that. What does all of this mean for the future of healing? What we're really talking about here is a paradigm shift, a whole new way of looking at things. It's about moving beyond just talking about the past. This is what's called a bottom-up approach. It goes straight to the source and retrains the brain's alarm system directly. It teaches the brain how to feel safe again so you can actually live fully in the present. And this isn't some fringe idea. This is being backed by leaders in the field. Thomas Enzel, who used to be the director of the National Institute of Mental Health, he basically said we need to start thinking about mental disorders as problems with faulty circuits. And that is exactly what neurofeedback is designed to do. It doesn't just treat the symptoms on the surface, it goes right to the underlying wiring. So that leaves us with a really big, thought-provoking question, doesn't it? As we discover more and more about the brain's amazing ability to change, what scientists call neuroplasticity, you have to wonder, could the future of mental health be less about talking about the past and more about actually listening to the brain itself and just giving it the tools it needs to rewire itself for a better present? Hey, thank you so much for joining us for this MediByte Explainer. If you found this as fascinating as we do, please do us a favor and like, share, and subscribe. We've got more deep dives into health, all made simple, coming your way. We'll see you in the next one.